what I said to my C12 chair is that I'm afraid that this instance, this issue that we're experiencing now may be, and I'm not saying it is, but it may be the last opportunity white Christians have to get this thing right, to address this correctly. And what I mean by that if we continue to have these situations, these unjust issues raise up, and whites don't feel violated by them, whites don't feel infuriated by them, then the next time this injustice comes up, it's only going to get bigger and worse. And then by the time you feel the pain of the injustice, it's going to be too late to do anything about it, because those elements on the fringe who are looking for anarchy and violence, they're going to get it, because there's going to be too large of a group in the middle that have decided that's the only alternative that they have to express their hurt and their anger. And so it's a very unique time we have, where we have this COVID-19, and then we have these injustice issues right on top of COVID-19. And so the analogy that I'm trying to share with my white friends is that, and I'll give you the reason why I'm sharing this, is because I've heard too many white friends say, man, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. And my C12 chair said the same thing. I want to do something, I'm just not sure what to do, but we've got to do something. And I said to him, Dave, when COVID-19 hit and it started affecting everyone, you didn't know exactly what to do, but what you didn't do was say to all of us, I don't know what to do. I said, when COVID-19 hit, white America didn't say we didn't know what to do. It was all hands on deck, and we're going to eradicate this thing. We're going to attack this virus, and we're going to keep attacking until we can subdue it. And so if that meant shutting down our businesses, if that meant it was no hold bar, it was like everything was on the table, because this was a killer that had the potential of destroying our lives. I said, that's the way blacks have been waiting for whites to look at racism, to attack it like a virus. And I said, the thing about racism is that it's a virus that whites are carrying, whites are transmitting, but they're asymptomatic to it. Now, it's not to say that blacks can't be racist. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that the way it affects whites, that you're able to live with it comfortably and not address it, not deal with it, and have a happy, healthy life. And yes, sometimes the virus flares up, but if we just hang on, it'll die back down and we can continue living our lives the same way. And that's the best analogy that I can give to help my white friends understand that for blacks, this virus of racism, man, is something that we deal with every day in all aspects of our life. Like COVID you wasn't able to have any aspect of your life that wasn't affected by COVID-19. Whether it was the job, your church, your groceries, your everything was affected by COVID. That's how racism affects our lives. If you can kind of get that, then that will be so helpful to be empathetic to what blacks are trying to articulate when they talk about addressing racism. But until whites figure out that it's a white issue, it's a white problem, it's never going to be corrected. But if it's not owned, and I'm specifically here in America, where white Americans have never owned their racism. And here I'll give you an example, Kyle, of what I'm talking about. In Germany, it's illegal, and as a culture, don't stand for the Nazi flag to be flown. They don't stand for it as a culture. right? Now, that's not to say there's no Nazis in Germany. There are. As a culture, they don't stand for it. They don't allow the words concentration and camp to even be used. You don't have a summer math concentration camp for kids in Germany. It just doesn't happen. They don't even do that here in America, right? America easily identifies the swastika as what it is, a symbol of hate. Well, they've never owned the Confederate flag the same way. Whites in mainstream white America, they see the Confederate flag on everything. People's personal vehicles, their homes, and it's no restaurant, and they live with it. It's like, and that's what I mean by like living with this virus, because they're like, well, that's their personal choice, but they would never live with the swastika being flown, or they easily identify the Taliban flag or the ISIS flag for what it is, or the swastika for what it is, but they won't identify and admit to what the Confederate flag is. Been yelling about that for forever, right? And you just say, well, it's just offensive to some people. But it's more than just being offensive. It's a representation of hate. It's the same thing that the swastika flew over. And about it is that if a Nazi was to say, oh, bad didn't happen at the concentration camp, there was some good too. There was some beautiful music that the Jews created out of the concentration camps, and we had wonderful Nazi balls, and the Jews performed and served us at these balls, and they were just elegant, just the highest of class and culture. You would think that was preposterous to hear someone talking that way, but yet you've heard that same rhetoric or the same explanation of the antebellum South and the plantations. And white America's never been offended by, say, apartment complex or subdivision called something plantation, or a country club called something plantation. And I'm like, the plantation was where we were abused and raped and all types of atrocities occurred. But white America doesn't own their atrocity. And it's like we can never heal if it's never admitted and own that, hey, there were some atrocities committed here, and we allow the symbolism of those atrocities to continue in our culture without addressing it, because it's not offensive enough. And that's what I mean by whites being asymptomatic to this virus of racism. Like, you can live, Kyle, can live around the rebel flag, the Confederate flag, the plantation this and that, and not be moved enough to march against it. I've seen white America come up and protest when they see a horse farm abusing horses, and you have somebody in the neighborhood that has 16 starving cats in their backyard. Whites don't go, I don't know what to do about it. No, they shut it down. They're not perplexed about it. But yet when it comes to addressing racism, we always hear, I just don't know what to do, don't know what to say. And so when I saw that article of 10 tips that you can do to address racial injustice in the workplace, I was so excited about it, because I'm like, that's perfect. This is something that every white person can do. These are tips that you don't have to start a new organization. You don't have to enact laws. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be in a special position of power to do some of these things. And these things would change our entire society, because if those 10 things, a few of them even, are really embraced by white Americans, then the conversation that you and I are having right now would occur more frequently and organically. Like, then a white person would have heard from their black friend going to Bob's plantation house for lunch is highly uncomfortable and offensive. And then if that conversation is had, Bob